mentioned a very important point, Mr. Vasan, is that you said that one of the important strategic element of this product launch was that each SKU was treated separately, and there was also a hospital promotion. Can you spend a little bit more time on that? Because that's a
Yeah,
very important learning for people.
yeah, absolutely. So because of course, I was lucky to be the brand manager, and I didn't have any other responsibility. So churning out more visual aids was not really that bit of a challenge, because I was just focusing on one brand. But then the point is that yeah, you have the tablet presentation, which is going to be used in the community, uh, for day-to-day infections.
Day-to-day
Uh,
infections, yeah.
yeah, yeah. But with some rationality, because it was quite expensive,
Right.
we could just push it and say that use first line to begin with. And but we said that resistance is already very high, so you
Yeah.
may have to perhaps use first line in some cases. So we gave the choice to the doctor very, very diplomatically. We put it across to say that, hey, look, here is resistance, and you have to use it in maybe where there is resistance. But anyway, resistance being so high, you may as well use it in the beginning. Now that is about the tablets. Now when we go to the injectables, now injectables are a different ball game altogether, because it is used in hospitals. And unless we realize that, unless you have a very good field force exclusively focusing on hospitals, you are not going to get it right, because we are talking again about microbiologists being in the picture. So unless you have a field force to cover the hospitals, we are not going to cover the top microbiologists. So then you get the microbiologist on board, then give them sensitivity disc, generate data, and use it in the hospital where they are practicing. And the physicians and the surgeons looked up and say, hey, look, yes, I think this is a better choice to go with. And we also said that this product at this point in time is not promoted to all and sundry. So it is specially for your use. So don't worry. Innately, it doesn't promote bacterial resistance, but still it is going to be used only by select people. So when it came to the injectable preparation, we had one for hospital physicians, where we talked about hospital-acquired pneumonia, or ventilator-induced pneumonia. And we also talked to surgeons about surgical prophylaxis, because this covered both aerobes and anaerobes. So much so, its anaerobic coverage was as good as metronidazole. So we said that you can use it as a single agent. So that's a different communication for the surgeons in hospital to use a surgical prophylaxis, and the physicians in hospital to be used in hospital-acquired pneumonia. And in the private market, we had this physicians who would treat, and the chest specialists who would use it in bronchitis, bronchiectasis, and also ENTs in sinusitis, otitis, etc. The pediatric preparation was given a separate treatment, because we said that the children can't wait for relief. So you have to use this product in a situation where there is high resistance. So each of these communication was very different. We got different speakers from abroad to talk specifically about each of these SKUs. The guy who talks about injection will not talk about the oral stuff. Like if he's talking about surgical prophylaxis, he just talks about surgical prophylaxis. And the guy who talks about the respiratory infection in the community will just stick on to that. Similarly, who talks about otitis media would talk just about otitis media to the audience here. And we had some 3 or 4 programs every year with these international top KOLs. And that really helped the product in terms of acquiring a very distinct positioning for each of these line extensions.
Oh,
That's what we went about with.
oh, that's very, very interesting, Mr. Vasan, because I hear a lot of things which our viewers will find it very useful. One is typically what happens is we look at the brand as a total brand, and you made a very important comment that also available. So I think there was no also available here. Each SKU was actually treated as a separate brand. I think that's a significant insight. I think the second thing which I heard when you were talking about all this is that if you look at anti-infective promotion, or for that matter, any other brand, we have a typical tendency of including everything. So if I ask a brand manager, what is the market for a brand? Typically he will say it's 100 crore or 200 crores or something like that. But what I hear from you in this, brand is that you divided the market into indications. So bronchitis was a market for you. Otitis media was a market for us. So I think it's a very important takeaway for the viewers. Please look at the indications. Each indication is a market. Market does not consist of molecules alone. It is not 100 crores or 200 crores. Within that, what is the indication on which you're focusing? Is bronchitis a large enough indication for you to focus? Like they found during that time that otitis media was a significantly large indication, right? So I think that's very good. Thank you, Mr. Vasan. Thank you very much. Okay, one very important question, Mr. Vasan. You mentioned that this product came in as a amoxicillin plus. The amoxicillin was considered to be a good molecule, but was not considered to be a very powerful molecule. And you brought in a product which was amoxicillin plus. So what was the approach for the pricing strategy here? Because amoxicillin was at the lower end, or maybe slightly lower than, slightly upper than the lower end as far as the pricing was concerned. So what were the thoughts behind pricing this product, and how did you go about it?
Yeah, one is, I should say, fortunately, we were not under the price control. So that helped.
Okay.
And it was very clear that we have to price it at a premium, because the more and more doctors associate it with amoxicillin, then there is a risk there. So we thought that though this was very well debated within the office, I still recall, but then the final decision was to actually say that amoxicillin is incidentally there, but the clavulinate in it does the job. It just and clavulanic acid per se, or a beta lactamase inhibitor per se as a category, was not very well known amongst the doctors. So we had something new to talk. Oh, because every time they talk about a new macrolide or a new cephalosporin or a third generation cephalosporin or whatever, we just talked about what is beta lactamase inhibitor. So that obviously meant that we need to explain what is beta lactamase. And then that obviously meant that we need to say how the antibiotic fights resistance. And then to an extent, we went and said that the price what we charge is all for clavulanic acid, and amoxicillin comes free in your product. So that is the value you pay for clavulinate potassium. And it worked, because that is the way for us to go, so that they don't associate it with amoxicillin and feel like this is not worth paying. Because there were some cephalosporins, second generation and third generation in the market, which were actually priced close to what the brand, what I'm talking about. So we were sure that we have to be in that league rather than being pushed towards the the penicillin or the ampicillin, amoxicillin, cloxacillin segment.
And what was the premium? Like if amoxicillin was 100, then 1x. This was how many x?
No, it was 10 times, very clearly.
10 times. Oh my God.
And that was, India was the only country where it was 10 times the price.
Oh, wonderful. So I think viewers can understand that we can create value for a brand. And if we understand what platforms to work on and how do you promote that platform, how to get the right type of stakeholders, talk about the brand, how to create the right type of environment for the brand. Wonderful, Mr. Vasan. Mr. Vasan, this brand, you handled it for some time and subsequently changed companies, and maybe you may not have been associated with this brand. But subsequently, the brand continued to grow. So maybe you did a lot of part of it, but when you look at it from a distance, are there any more learnings for this brand subsequently? How did it, continue to grow in this manner?
Yeah, it's a very good question. See, first is the biggest message I will tell you, is that irrespective of mergers and acquisitions, a brand can survive. And if you have an open mind. So I think this brand was very fortunate to get a sort of management which was very open. They didn't bother where it came from, but they saw the intrinsic potential in the product, and then saw that how we can exploit this potential using the strength of the newly formed company. So what we did, as I told you, the central theme, which we didn't lose sight of, was bacterial resistance. Now, bacterial
Right.
resistance, after we have talked about the beta-lactamase story, then there was resistance because of, another reason, which we call the penicillin-resistant streptococcus or the drug-resistant streptococcus pneumoniae. So this was becoming a big issue. So after a few years, we started talking about now not only just beta-lactamase induced resistance, but also streptococcus pneumoniae, resistant streptococcus pneumoniae, which is a huge challenge, particularly in respiratory tract infections. Incidentally, streptococcus pneumoniae doesn't produce beta lactamase, but then still the brand was associated with resistance, and we could get data to show that it works against resistant streptococcus pneumoniae. Now, then we had this, launch of the BID dose from TID to BID. So every smallest of things, we took it very seriously. We didn't want to just go and say that now it can be used BID, but we coined Duo, and that is still there in the market. And then came this merger. So by that time the brand was almost 8 years, and slowly it started expanding from 25 doctors, what I told you we started with. Now we were at least talking to about 80 to 100 doctors in everybody's list. But still India was growing, and the market was much bigger. If you take a typical antibiotic, right up to GPs and sorry to say, but even RMP is prescribed. It got the benefit of this second mega merger sometime in 2001, when it rightfully went to a larger field force, and being a company which is well versed in selling antibiotics, they took it to the larger population, but never lost the core message or the core theme, and taking
Resistance.
the story of bacterial resistance further and down the line with a lot of data, and then also increasing the usage in hospital setting. Every single ICU in the country in big private hospitals were monitored for what was the antibiotic that was used
Resistance pattern.
previous day, and how many patients who gave the prescription, and how many we believed that everything should come to us. And we could do it because now it was with a much larger team, with a much larger coverage. And the rest is history. If somebody had told that this would be a 300 crore plus product on the day when we launched, we had a big ambition, but there would have been skeptics. But that's the power of the brand. Today it is a reality.
Wonderful. So I think what's important for us to take home is a brand as it starts growing, there is a situation which comes for a brand man in a brand manager's life or the company's life, where we feel that we have reached the product life cycle, end of the product life cycle. It has plateaued. It is going to go down. There are not only this brand, there are many brands which have demonstrated that if the marketing person behind the brand is able to think through, there are interventions which can bring by which the product life cycle can be extended. Now let's take the example of this brand. This brand, multiple interventions, which has ensured that the product life cycle does not affect it. It has kept on growing. First one is indication expansion. Second one is dosage. Different type of dosages were brought in. Third one is different type of markets were exploited. All of you are aware that it went through a massive price cut sometimes back. And the company did not stop. They ensured that the product became a popular product, even for GPs, absolutely down the line into the interiors, right? So every category they have exploited, every market they have exploited. So to believe that our product is old or it has come to an end of its product life cycle, there are umpteen examples in the industry which show that if the marketing person is having the right type of thought process, you can beat the product life cycle and you can ensure that the brand keeps on growing. I think that has been great, Mr. Vasan. So as a conclusion, what would be the important three take-home points for our viewers?
One is, I think, market correctly. As you also rightly said, Mr. Lonkar, that market is a set of patients with common needs. So you should understand, and the same patient may be given different antibiotics. So it's not like the molecule defines the market, but the patients define the market. So define your market correctly. Aim big. aim big. That is very, very important. Because if you are not going to aim big, then you are not going to create a mega brand. So have confidence, aim big, because one wouldn't get the resources to build a mega brand. So that is very important. And as I told, treat each of the SKUs as a brand in itself, because the field understands the field. If you're going to go for a launch and you do a half a day launch of an SKU, and then keep the second half for a sales review or something, they know that, okay, this is also now launched, and they slowly lose interest. But you have to make absolutely show of every single thing that comes along with this brand, the mother brand. This is now another big thing that is happening here. So that is very, very important. And that would inspire the field force as well. And yeah, these are the big things I would say that we need to take home as a message. And of course, get the support of all the departments in the company. That is a very, very key role of a brand manager. None of them, maybe many of them don't report to you, but you have to influence and get the support. That can come through only your passion, what you exhibit, that they feel like, yeah, I will do something for this guy or this girl.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Vasan. I think my take-home points, in addition to what you have told, are, if I had to restrict only three. One is, for a brand to be created a big, one should be very clear about what is the central theme. And in this case, in this brand's case, it was resistance. And this concept of bacterial resistance, or the theme which is there, has been consistently focused on as a central theme, irrespective of whatever has happened as far as the market is concerned. That is, I think, the first take-home point. The second important learning from this DNA of a mega brand is that don't think of SKU as a line extension. Each SKU can be differently positioned. Each SKU can be a brand, and each of this SKU can become a mega brand by itself. And the third important thing, because I'm restricting to only three, is market segment and market segment creation. It requires smart and strategic thinking. In case of this brand, we have talked about markets by way of hospitals, interiors, villages, etc. We also looked at, in this case, that the market was also defined as bronchitis. Then we talked about streptococcus resistance, right? We talked about otitis media, right? This is a very different way of looking at the market. So I'm sure that all of you must have picked up a lot of things from this presentation and from the discussion. And once again, Mr. Vasan, thank you very much. This was very, very insightful. And I'm sure that all the people who are listening to us would have a huge amount of advantage, and they would be able to implement the learnings from this DNA for mega brand discussion. So, ladies and gentlemen, my friends and colleagues from the industry, let's thank Mr. Vasan. And please remember, DNA of a mega brand, it comes to you from Next Plan Consulting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.